going to host a panel discussion. And that will be nice because we haven't had the luxury of, hi there, Ken. We haven't had the luxury of being able to have much discussion because we've been trying to, provide the multitude of examples that people have presented throughout the day. But, and I can't say that we're saving the best until last, although I must say Blonit and I have been very hugely impressed and hold Professor Lawrence Fung in very high esteem. We've been working with him for a long period of time now, but each of the presentations today has just been wonderful. However, it is just the final presentation of the day. So I'd like to introduce Professor Lawrence Fung. He's an assistant professor at the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Stanford University, Palo Alto. And he's going to speak with Christy Matta, the program manager, and they're going to talk about the Stanford Neurodiversity project. Lawrence and Christy, over to you. We're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you, Fiona. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the kind introduction. So let me get my slides to the screen. Okay. Can you see the slides okay?
Yeah, we can see the slide. It's not yet in slide mode, but yeah, perfect, Lawrence.
All right. So Christy and I are going to talk about neurodiversity and some of the examples that illustrating what principles that we are following in the Stanford Neurodiversity project, both in the educational and employment settings. And I think in academic institutions, a lot of us are really in a special position to be able to provide a lot more than corporations because of what we do in research, in education, and we also employ people in our institutions. So first, I'm going to talk about neurodiversity. I'm sure a lot of the other speakers today have already talked about them. I'll really breeze through it as quickly as possible so that we can move on to other topics that are maybe newer. So we'll talk about the string-based model of neurodiversity, our Stanford Neurodiversity project, and then pose the question on how can we work together to maximize the potential of neurodiversity. So in our group, the definition of neurodiversity is about regarding individuals with differences in brain function and behavioral traits as part of normal variation of the human population. So when we talk about neurodiverse conditions, we often refer to autism, ADHD, dyslexia, but there are much more than that. And I'm sure by now you know autism is a very common condition now. It's no longer a rare condition, not like 30 years ago. The dyslexia is much higher in prevalence, and ADHD is also pretty high. So collectively, neurodiverse conditions may be the largest minority group in the world. Oftentimes when we look at human abilities, we look at the bell-shaped curve. The green in the middle is average, and on the right-hand side would be above average. On the left-hand side would be below average. And say, for example, IQ, which is a very much not perfect way of assessing human abilities, is often used everywhere. And someone that has an IQ of 100 will be considered as average. Anybody that's in the green zone is in the average area. And then if someone is above 130 IQ will be considered as pretty smart. Above 145 would be genius level. And below 70 would be considered as having intellectual disability. And I said IQ is very much limited because there are many domains that not captured. So Howard Gardner in Harvard University have posed this theory of multiple intelligences for 25 years, and basically in addition to the visual, spatial, verbal, linguistics, logical, mathematical domains, he also suggested that musical, rhythmic, bodily, kinesthetic, naturalistic, interpersonal, which is the ability to relate with each other, intrapersonal is the ability to understand self, and existential domains, they should all be considered as important streams to be considered. So just as an illustration for Einstein, what is the profile looking like? Musical is probably above average, at least plays the violin. Visual spatial, way up there. Verbal linguistic, actually not so high. He actually didn't speak until 4. Logical mathematical, 15 standard deviation above everyone. Naturalistic, probably average. Intrapersonal and interpersonal, actually not so high. Body kinesthetic, average, at least he ride a bicycle. So when we remember Einstein, we remember him as someone that really changed the world for what he's strong at, but not what he is struggling with. So this is the major concept that we want to bring in, that the very prominent people don't really excel in all different domains. They often struggle in some domains. And it is true not only for Einstein, but for many prominent scientists like Alan Turing and Nikola Tesla, Charles Darwin. They don't have the formal diagnosis of autism, but from the history books, they really have some traits that look like autism. And there are others that are not scientists, like Andy Warhol, who is the father of pop art, Andy Kaufman, an entertainer. Here's Lewis Carroll, who wrote the Alice in the Wonderland. So the point here also is that people on the spectrum are not only strong at sciences or mathematics or engineering. They can be strong at other fields. As long as they are really passionate about it, they can really get deep into these interests and really make the world better because of what they do. And then here are a few other people that do not have autism. They have dyslexia. So here's Jay Leno, Whoopi Goldberg, so Jackie Stewart, and here's Dr. Carol Greider, who won the Nobel Prize in 2004 in medicine for her discovery of the enzyme telomerase. And here's Dr. Stuart Udovsky and Toby Cosgrove, and they are prominent physicians in the United States. So here are some other people that have ADHD. So you may recognize Simone Biles, who is a really prominent gymnast in the United States, won the Olympic medal, and Michael Phelps, who won more gold medals in the Olympics than anyone in the world. And here's Will Smith and Kerani Smirnoff, and here's someone that you know very well, Sir Richard Branson, and here's Howie Mandel. So these people with ADHD, and a lot of what they are able to do is, sometimes people think that you have ADHD, then you cannot focus. Actually, they can really hyper focus on what they are doing. So it is really on the contrary of what we think ADHD is. So neurodiversity can be a competitive advantage. And one major concept about autism is that I want to bring away for you is that there is a set of characteristics such as perseveration as a challenge that we can actually flip it into something that's considered as a strength. So it's really depending on the context. If someone is getting a good result at the end, then you call it persistence, not perseveration. Similarly, the people on the spectrum have a lot of challenges seeing big picture, but when your task at hand is really about solving problems that require the details, like debugging a program, then you don't want the person to keep looking at the big picture. You want the person to be able to find the details. Field interest is very common, but when they do develop that interest, they have such depth of knowledge that a lot of people would not even get into. Perspective taking is a challenge for individuals on the spectrum, but they are very concrete and honest. Social interactions are not their strong suit, but they are usually one of the most loyal friends that you can have. So same characteristics that you see for autism, the person has not changed, but depending on how the environment is shaped, you can really steer them to the strengths instead of the challenges. Similarly, for ADHD, we are seeing impulsivity as a challenge, but at the same time, people with ADHD can make decisions very quickly. Hyperactivity would come with high energy, difficulty focusing on tasks that they are not interested in. But as I said, when they are interested in it, they can really hyper focus on it, even much better than some other people that don't have ADHD. They are often easily distracted, but they also could become some of the most creative minds. Creativity of ADHD, this is coming from an article in Scientific American several years ago, and it's been shown that creativity over and over again in people with ADHD. And there are also some other traits that we often see in people with ADHD: resilience, multitasking, big picture thinking, cool in a crisis. So you would think that this set of traits would be very much compatible with people that are considered as CEOs. Dyslexia is not exactly the same construct. It's not like the same set of characteristics, and then depending on the context, you see the challenges and the strengths within the same characteristic. Dyslexia basically have their own set of challenges that are kind of independent from the strengths. So challenges, as we know, reading, writing, spelling, time awareness, rote memory are their challenges, but they are very strong problem solvers. They're very creative, they're very observant, and they are very good socially. And we often use the acronym MIND streams to memorize the streams that they have: material reasoning, interconnected reasoning, narrative, and dynamic reasoning. So now I'm going to talk about the strength-based model of neurodiversity, which is very much opposite of the disability model that is about diagnosis. We are really focusing on the strengths that we have talked about in the last few slides. So strengths-based model is not a new concept. Even in the very beginning, over almost like 80 years ago, Bill Connor, who described the first series of children with autism, he already recognized that there are strengths in these children in terms of memory skills and musical abilities. And same for Asperger's, just a year later, also described very similar memory strengths. And over the years, there are many other investigators that have also replicated some of the similar findings in memory, musical abilities, but many more other domains like reading and calendrical calculations, spatial skills, and fine motor skills, etc. And one point that I also want to bring out from here is that, for example, in the Rapin study, here is the high functioning group they found 51 people in this study, and the low functioning group who basically have intellectual disability, they have 125 of them in the study. You are not only seeing memory skills in the high functioning group, even people with autism and intellectual disability have a significant portion with very high memory skills. And same for musical abilities, some a little bit lower for reading, and some other domains as well. So if you are not looking for it, you may as well completely miss the opportunity to figure out that people on the spectrum with intellectual disabilities can be having very high abilities in certain domains. So in the strain-based model of neurodiversity, we focus on positive psychology and positive psychiatry as the guiding principles. We used the Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences and Chickering's 7 vectors of development as the rubric for building our programs. And we consider neurodiverse conditions as conditions rather than disorders. We acknowledge the challenges that that neurodiverse individuals face, but we don't call them deficits. We apply strain-based model across the entire spectrum of neurodiverse conditions. So I'll quickly talk about some of the major components. So positive psychology was initially brought up even before Martin Seligman and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi brought it up 20 years ago. But it's really these two individuals that made positive psychology a very powerful field. And they basically talk about well-being, contentment, and satisfaction as core of the positive psychology. Flow is basically immersing oneself in activities and get satisfaction out of it. And there's happiness, hope, and optimism. Over the last 20 years, there are 53 published definitions of positive psychology, but these 3 are basically the most common ideas. And the major 3 words to describe these 3 ideas is strengths, interests, and development. Positive psychiatry is also one area that we want to be aware of. Unlike traditional psychiatry, positive psychiatry focuses on positive attributes and strengths, as well as protective factors and neuroplasticity, instead of the pathology and risk factors. In terms of treatment, traditional psychiatry would focus on symptom relief by medications and short-term psychotherapies. But positive psychiatry is really about increased well-being and growth through psychoeducational interventions, which is going to be really important to get the person to use across their lifespan, which can give us a lot of preventative value in basically decreasing the chance for people on the spectrum or other neurodiverse conditions to have more psychiatric symptoms. And this is largely ignored in the traditional psychiatry education. Chickering's 7 vectors of development include developing competence, managing emotions, moving through autonomy toward interdependence, not only independence, developing mature interpersonal relationships, establishing identity, developing purpose, and developing integrity. When we're building our programs, we stress that we ask 3 questions as we look at these 7 vectors. One is, what do we teach neurodiverse individuals to achieve these developmental milestones? The second is, how about the environment? What about the school officials? What about the managers? What can they do in order to help the neurodiverse individuals grow? using these developmental milestones as guidelines. And then the third is about mental health providers, the same question, but for the different group. So basically, the strength-based model to be applied to neurodiverse individuals would stress on getting them to raise awareness about their personal strengths, increasing their trust in personal abilities, and help them learn how to engage in meaningful relationships and increase their self-satisfaction through success. And also, unlike the traditional way of helping people on the spectrum or other neurodiverse conditions, we shy away from focusing on the comorbid conditions like anxiety, depression, executive dysfunction. Rather, we focus on how we use their strengths in order to overcome challenges that may describe these words. And I'm going to very quickly say that unlike traditional methods in assessing neurodiverse individuals, strength-based assessments would be more well-rounded, more preventative focus, and is definitely less demoralizing. And there are many, there are many assessments that are considered strength-based in the last 20 years, and we don't really have to start from scratch. In the Stanford Neurodiversity project, we have 6 objectives. The first is the most important one, is to establish a culture that treasures the strengths of neurodiverse individuals. If we do it right, then we can empower neurodiverse individuals to build their identity based on their strengths, and that can get them to use it for the rest of their lives. And we want to attract talented neurodiverse individuals to come to Stanford to work and to study. And this is the initial objective. And now we are helping other organizations to attract their talented neurodiverse individuals to join them as well. We want to train talented individuals to work with neurodiverse population and disseminate our model as widely as possible. We want to maximize the potential of neurodiversity, not only for the neurodiverse individuals, but for all of us, because they can really bring so much to the table. And over the last 3 years, we have grown significantly. And the 4 tenets that we are working with are education, service, advocacy, and research. And unlike a person-centered model that is only about the neurodiverse individuals, we use a more ecosystem approach to understand different layers of the environment that can affect that can positively influence the neurodiverse individual's environment. So the family, friends are definitely the closest, and then the mentors, therapists. In the educational setting, we have the teachers, coaches, classmates, and also in the a larger, maybe a little bit more away from neurodiverse individuals, but can be very influential, could be the school officials and the school community. And in the employment setting, similarly, we have the supervisors, job coaches, colleagues, executives, work community, and other supporting communities. So we got 3 major initiatives going on in the last 3 years: Neurodiversity Awareness and Education Initiative, Neurodiversity at Work and Wellness Initiative, and Neurodiversity Independent Living Skills Initiative. And within them, there are several programs that we are going to talk about a little bit more. One is the special interest group that we have been running for the last 3 years. We have got people that are knowledgeable in neurodiversity in various ways, usually about employment or student support or mental health support. And every month we got an expert to talk about a topic, and we have been very much attracting a lot of people to call in. Initially, more in the Bay Area, in California, and now basically we have people calling in from all around the world. We have over 650 people in our distribution list at this point, and if you are interested in signing up, you can just go to our website, Stanford Neurodiversity Project. If you Google Stanford Neurodiversity Project, and then go to the special interest group page, and then you can sign up yourself, or send us an email. And the other thing that we always talk about is the awareness that we are trying to do every day. And last month, actually now a month and a half ago, we had this scaling up, our Stanford Neurodiversity Summit. Our theme of the conference is scaling up the Neurodiversity at Work initiative. We have over 3,000 people registered for the conference, for a 5-day conference, and with over 90 moderators and speakers. And some of them actually are also in this conference. And this is just a list of other presentations. And these are some of the companies that we work with. And now I'll pass it on to Christy, who will talk about the Neurodiverse Student Support Program.
Great, thank you. Yes, so I'll be talking about the Neurodiverse Student Support Program, NSSP. And when we looked at developing NSSP, we looked at the neurodiverse students ecosystem in the college setting. And we see again at the center, there's the neurodiverse college students and their friends and family. And then in the center ring, we see the professors and classes, residential life and roommates, and student organizations and clubs, as well as therapists and mentors. And these are the elements of college life that the students will have most day-to-day contact with. And then in the outer ring, we have the school officials, campus resources, and the school community, which are the elements of campus life the student has more occasional contact with. If we can go to the next slide. So in developing NSSP and the model, we started with this center ring, which includes the parts of college life that make up the day-to-day life of students. And head to the next slide. So one of the things that is in that center ring is classes, and we've developed a class, PSYC 229, which is Topics in Neurodiversity, Introduction and Advocacy. This is a 1 unit per quarter class. It's offered 3 quarters. It's a seminar class, so it's relatively small and discussion oriented. Currently in the remote environment, it's asynchronous, and its audience is all students. So both students who are neurodiverse and identify as neurodiverse, as well as those who identify as neurotypical. Next slide. And along with the broader understanding of the strengths-based model, the class aims to explore practical and tangible concepts and life skills that connect students with their own unique strengths and challenges. And it presents the concept of seeing the world through a different lens as a leadership skill. And as part of the mission, the class is designed to affect the culture within the Stanford community by exposing an array of students to the strengths-based model of neurodiversity and a broader and deeper understanding of neurodiversity that may inform their interactions and beliefs about themselves and about the people that they live with, befriend, work with, or employ, well beyond their participation in the class. Next slide. And the class covers, these are just some examples of the topics covered in the class, and they range from everything from what is neurodiversity and why study it, to positionality and one's social location and worldview and how that influences how one responds to power differentials, the history of neurodiverse conditions, disability movements, stigma, the strengths-based model of neurodiversity, the sensory systems, executive functioning. You see here also employment and life after college, intersectionality, research and ethics. So it covers a really broad spectrum of topics. If we go to the next. So the class is one core aspect of our student support program. And if we take a look then at the middle ring, we also see that residential life and roommates is a key aspect of the student's experience in day-to-day life. For our program, that begins with transition orientation for neurodiverse students. We can go to the next slide. And this year, as part of our remote transition orientation, we created a series of videos to provide an overview of the program, the strength-based model, and other important topics such as campus resources and time management. And in this video, Isabel, who's an NSSP coordinator, one of our peer mentors, and a student mentee share their experiences of the program.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm the program coordinator for the Stanford Neurodiversity project, and I'm also autistic. I graduated from Stanford a year ago, and it's been really fun for me to create a program based on my experiences of going through Stanford as an autistic student and not having supports. It's been really rewarding to be able to kind of fill those gaps and go, ooh, I really would have liked to know that ahead of time, or wow, someone could have told me that before my junior year. And so I've really enjoyed getting to work with students and also use my experience to help other future students.
My name is Lucy. I'm a rising sophomore. I'm autistic, and this is my STEM toy right now. I really appreciate the peer mentor program because I don't understand a lot of social things. They don't make sense until someone interprets them, and Google Translate is not great at this. And it was very wonderful to have a human who understood me, listened to me, decoded things, gave me suggestions, and ate dinner with me. And yeah, I would just liken peer mentoring to a year-long orientation that was very much needed. And I think that the peer mentoring program has helped me feel a lot more comfortable and confident in my own decisions. It is very good to have someone who has been at Stanford for a while and who understands both me and Stanford.
So I'm Sarah. I just graduated from Stanford, but I was a peer mentor for this past year and also the first year of the peer mentoring program. And I think that it's been a really great place for someone who's an upperclassman who's kind of learned from their own trials and errors and whatever they've been through while they've been at Stanford to kind of pass along the resources and supports that they wished they had, or the things that they now learned, to someone who's going through the same thing. I think it's also just a program that really connects people. So you have someone that maybe you wouldn't have met or come across in your other circles, but who can be a great support to you. I think that because the peer mentoring program is like a one-on-one mentor-mentee relationship, you can really kind of tailor the experience and the supports to what your mentor or mentee needs, and kind of build your own relationship and norms for meeting, and figure out exactly what works for you. Like Lucy mentioned, with it being like a year-long orientation, but it's very personalized. And I think that's what makes it such a useful tool.
So that was a video that it was shared, one of many videos, and part of a discussions that happened remotely for our transition orientation, which is typically an orientation that occurs before students have the all student orientation for residential life. And so why does it make sense then when we talk about working with neurodiversity and working specifically with residential life as a point of intervention? And one of the things that we know is that many students, whether they're neurodiverse or otherwise, don't make use of campus resources, whether it's advisors or tutoring or mental health services. But the one service that almost every student touches is residential education. And there are supports built in as part of it in the form of RAs and RFs and RDs. And at Stanford, 97% of undergrads actually live on campus and are a part of the residential life. Can go to the next slide. So in our transition orientation, we cover topics that prepare students for dorm life. such as who are my dorm staff, what do they do, can they help me with. We talk about considerations around disclosure and dorm staff. But obviously the res ed staff are not a neurodiversity specific resource. So we trained both the professional and the student residential staff on how to recognize students who may benefit from our program, how to support neurodiverse students, and how to use universal design principles to create a more inclusive dorm community. And that's done prior to students moving in the RA training. That happens, that's a form of a role play where they can work in a very real life type of situation in identifying and working positively with neurodiverse students. We can go to the next slide. And then again, this inner role, we've got mentors and therapists as really central to the day-to-day life of the students. So we can move on. So the mentors play a significant role in supporting neurodiverse students, and as part of NSSP, we've developed the Peer Mentors program to support neurodiverse students on their transitioning to college, which includes independent living skills, social skills, access to mental health, learning in college. We also touch on employment. And peer mentors are juniors or seniors at Stanford who are extensively trained to work with neurodiverse students before they're assigned to work with their mentees. And the mentors meet with students in weekly meetings that are a balance of individualized and guided discussion. The individual discussions are meant to strengthen their relationship, to allow for conversation to develop naturally, and to provide an opportunity to address any immediate concerns of the mentee, and to share interests and just have fun together. And the guided discussion is based on a self-advocacy curriculum, and the mentors and mentees cover topics that are important for neurodiverse students, such as self-knowledge, building a support network, health and wellness, interpersonal relationships, making and pursuing goals, and as I mentioned before, employment. And our peer mentor program also includes opportunities for students to engage with each other in campus groups. You can go to the next slide. And this includes an affinity group, which is structured by student interest and facilitated by our program coordinator, Isabel, who you saw in the video. And the meeting could be unstructured, a hangout. This year, we're having a lot of requests for study sessions where they just all hang out and study together. Or it might be a panel discussion on neurodiversity topics or some campus-specific issues such as housing options. So it's really based on what the students need. And then we also have a group me, and that was developed in the remote environment, but we'll probably keep it, and that's really similar, functions in a similar way to a group text. We can go to the next one. So now if we turn to the outermost ring of the student ecosystem, we see that there's campus resources. And as with most college campuses, the resources available to students include disability resources that address accommodation needs and learner variability, and resources designed for the wider student body, whether they identify as neurodiverse and carry a diagnosis or are neurotypical. And we know that neurodiverse students often don't connect with or make use of resources that could increase their success in college and beyond for a variety of reasons. Next slide. There we go. So we've thought about how we can help these organizations positively engage with neurodiverse students. And one key aspect is communicating to students that they're welcome and that these resources are there for them, which can be done in a wide variety of ways. We've looked at both the referral process and scaffolding interactions in order to support students in making use of these programs. And I'm going to focus on an example of a toolkit we made for a campus resource that offers academic and executive functioning coaching to all students. And in our toolkit, we offer principles and tangible strategies for the programs to create inclusive communication, groups and culture, and events and spaces. Those last two are less relevant right now, but hopefully we'll return to a time when that is happening more regularly. But an example of inclusive communication includes starting by asking students how they prefer to communicate, providing ahead of time topics and questions that the tutor or coach may ask so that the neurodiverse student can prepare in advance and enter the session feeling comfortable and confident. It might be recommendations for inclusive events and spaces that center around pre-planning, sharing detailed information ahead of time, including what to bring or maps, and recommendations about space and how to reduce sensory overload as just some of the examples in how we might work with campus resources to be something that neurodiverse students can access a little bit more easily. And if we go to the next slide. So it's our hope that increasing understanding and value for differences in the class, support psychoeducation and connection in the mentoring program, and greater inclusion in residential life and the wider campus, that we create an environment in which the neurodiverse students can build on strengths, express positive personality traits and their talents. And the hope is that they experience the college environment as one that supports positive emotional well-being and fulfillment. And with that, I will turn it back to Lawrence to talk about our Neurodiversity at Work program.
Thank you, Christy. We have spent a lot of time on our neurodiverse student support program, and also a lot of time on this Neurodiversity at Work program. And the objectives that we have in this program is to cultivate the concept of strength-based model of neurodiversity in organizations. We want to empower managers and the other team members to gain skills that can help them to work with neurodiverse individuals. And this way we can increase, on the other hand, we also want to increase the job readiness for neurodiverse individuals. And this way we are supporting both the employer side and the neurodiverse employees. And we want to do it in the entire employment cycle. We have a schematic here that basically shows what we are doing. We have this Stanford Neurodiverse Candidate Registry that is basically the entryway for candidates to our program. For people that are job ready, if they have some job experience or and also have gone through some kind of pre-employment training, then they are usually considered as job ready. If they are not job ready, then we'll send them to pre-employment training or internships, and then they will be sent back to the registry after they are ready for a longer term position. The other side of the coin in this Neurodiversity at Work program is the jobs. So we have this Stanford Neurodiversity Job Bank. Our goal is to make all the jobs that we are putting into the job bank neurodiversity friendly. There are many companies that are working with us that already have their own Autism at Work program or Neurodiversity at Work program. So they can just basically post their jobs in our job bank. For the other companies that do not have a Neurodiversity at Work program, we will basically provide training to them. And after we find good candidates to the positions, then the managers would look at the appropriateness for interviews, and when they think there is a good candidate, then we want to make sure that the candidate would succeed. So that's why we want to make sure that there's accommodated interview. The traditional pathway for interviewing is actually not so good for neurodiverse individuals. 80% of autistic individuals are unemployed or underemployed, not because they don't have good qualities in their background, not because they cannot do the job. It's really because the system has failed them. So basically, we have to fix the system by negotiating with the employers to make sure that the interviews would be maybe a little bit different if, say, there are some hurdles that some neurodiverse individuals would face. If they would be like having too much anxiety, talking with a panel of people, then we would basically negotiate for a smaller group or even maybe a one-on-one, and we'll have other kinds of accommodations as we see fit. And it's not only about accommodating the neurodiverse individuals, we also look at the practicality on exactly if the job actually, I mean, the interview can be changed in such a way that the employers are actually able to assess the neurodiverse individuals. So it's a negotiation. It's not about giving accommodations, and that's all we are doing. And over time, hopefully, some of the neurodiverse individuals would get offers, and then they will be onboarded. In our program, basically, most people are entering our program through our website. So they come to our website, they click in here, and then complete the screening form. The employers would get more information from our website, and then start talking with us from email, and then we'll talk by video conference. We are supporting both neurodiverse individual and the employers. So the blue arrows are going to show what we do for neurodiverse individuals. So we help them identify pre-employment training and internship opportunities. We help them with their job search. We help them with their interview process, even some of the negotiation on the hiring onboarding process. And after onboarding, we also support them in the transition period for 12 weeks. In parallel, for the employers, we would provide neurodiversity awareness training if they need one. And we would have a position consultation to make sure that the jobs are going to be posted in a way that would be attracting neurodiverse individuals instead of scaring them away. Neurodiverse individuals are very concrete, so sometimes extraneous information can basically deter them from not applying for the positions. And then we will train the employers on interviewing, and also how they can interact with the neurodiverse individuals through best practice training. And if there is a good match, we would start thinking about how to make changes, maybe small changes in terms of accommodations that can be put in place even before onboarding. And after onboarding, just like the employees, we would also provide a 12-week support. So each neurodiverse individual would have 2 support circles. One is the workplace support circle that have the team manager, team buddy, and the neurodiversity at work mentor. And there's a SNP, Stanford Neurodiversity Project coach for the team, interacting with the managers and the team buddy. And there's also another coach for the neurodiverse employee that would interact with the neurodiverse individual, and sometimes with other people in the personal life support circle if necessary. And this is, I'm not going to go through this. Basically, it's just some details on the 12-week support program. And this is one example of the materials about the hidden curriculum that we teach the neurodiverse individuals.
Like an iceberg, some communication between people is clear and easily seen, the part of the iceberg above water. But some communication is there, like the ice under the water, but not always as easily perceived, especially if you don't know to look for it. You can think of this communication as the hidden curriculum. Why is it important to understand the hidden curriculum? Because humans are inherently social beings and reliant on social interconnectedness for survival and to get along. At work, we may not rely on communication for our actual survival, but we do need to understand it for many reasons. Knowing the hidden curriculum can help us avoid mistakes. Understanding it allows us to accurately interpret situations and get help when we need it. Understanding the hidden curriculum can help you make decisions about how you want to interact and how you want to communicate and be understood. So how is the hidden curriculum communicated? Often it comes in the form of body language, slang, gestures, facial expressions, and tone of voice. Picking up on the hidden curriculum can be especially difficult when you're in a new environment. It's not uncommon for people who are neurodiverse to have difficulty understanding nonverbals, reading facial expressions, interpreting sarcasm or idioms, or dealing with social situations and office politics. So what can you do? Get support from a mentor. That may be your supervisor, a team buddy, an HR manager, or someone else at work. Review employment materials and standard operating procedures. Communicate about your behavior and what it means. For example, you might say, I don't tend to make eye contact. It's not comfortable for me, but here's how you know I'm listening. In the end, the choice is yours. You may want to get support, adapt to the norms of the environment, or create understanding and acceptance. Whichever choice you make, remember, bring your strengths. Maybe it's persistence, maybe you can sustain attention, maybe you're detail-oriented or you have a deep knowledge. Maybe you're a concrete thinker, you're loyal, and you communicate really clearly. Whatever it is, bring your strengths to understanding the hidden curriculum.
So on the other hand, for the employer, I told you about the 12-week program. We basically spend usually one half of the time going over some materials, such as the topics listed here, and the other half of the time would talk about their experience with that, with the neurodiverse individual in that particular week, and then basically solve some problems if there are some problems, or if there are good things that are happening, we want to know what's working for them as well. So in summary, neurodiverse individuals offer so much to organizations if given a chance. Neurodiverse individuals have specific challenges that can be overcome. And the strength-based model of neurodiversity incorporates positive psychology, positive psychiatry, Chickering's 7 vectors of development, and theory of multiple intelligences. And we use these concepts to build the Stanford Neurodiversity project in order to maximize the potential of neurodiversity. So the last question is, how can we work together to maximize the potential of neurodiversity? Join the special interest group for neurodiversity. Let us know your interests in neurodiversity. And if you're in the United States especially, then let us know if neurodiverse individuals you know are looking for employment, and introduce us to organizations interested in learning about neurodiversity, and introduce us to organizations interested in hiring neurodiverse individuals. especially if they are in the United States. Tell us how you want to be involved. By working together, we can make a difference to the neurodiverse community and beyond. And with that, I'm going to stop and I'd like to thank you for your attention. And here are some of our supporters.